Welcome. In this video, we are going to review the Triangle Splatting Plus paper. That's a paper that's building on top of the Triangle Splatting paper that we reviewed in my latest video. So I would advise you to have a look at it if you did not watch it yet. Basically, the issue with Triangle Splatting is that it's building a triangle soup. That's what the authors call it. So basically, it's a set of unconnected triangles. It's a great representation that gives a state-of-the-art result for novel view synthesis, but it's not great if you want to use it for downstream tasks, for example, to plug the representation into a game engine. So basically here, the point of this paper is that they produce a semi-connected mesh. We are going to discuss that in a moment. But basically, this new representation allows to is much more it's more compatible with downstream tasks on with integration with game engines. For example, you can do a lot of things. For example, you can so first you can see that the representation you learn after training, you can use it in any import it in any game engine. Then you can do physical interaction, workable scene, ray tracing, scene editing. So anything you could do previously in game engine, now you can do it with the scene you've learned just from images. So that's really awesome. That's one step further from the Triangle Splatting paper to bridge the gap between traditional graphics and Gaussian splatting or neural rendering. So that's a very big, I would say very big step forward since the release of that paper, they came up with an even better paper, mesh splatting, that I'm going to discuss later in my YouTube channel. I will also implement this paper from scratch, so I would advise you to subscribe if it's not yet done. Okay, so basically, as you said, triangle splatting produces a set of unconnected triangles, while traditional graphics are used to work with meshes, so with connected triangles. So the first thing they do, they modify the triangle splatting parameterization. Instead of modeling triangles individually, they model, we're going to have a look at the parameterization in a moment. But basically what they do, they model the vertices, okay? So each vertex is some attributes, such as, for example, its coordinates, its opacity, its color, which are represented by the spherical harmonics components. And then individual triangles are just represented by the indices. They're just pointing to the vertices that are defining them. Okay, and then the properties of each triangle, such as, for example, the color or the opacity, they're doing a barycentric interpolation between the vertex attributes. And therefore the gradients are propagated first to the triangles, and then they are averaged or they are summed to the vertices, and then you can update the parameters of your representation, because your parameters are really the vertex attributes. It's not a per triangle, it's a per vertex attributes. Okay. So what they do at initialization, they use this well-known algorithm to create a connected mesh out of the point cloud. And then that means that at initialization, they have a connected mesh. But then during training, because densification and pooling is a very important component of Gaussian splatting or of any subsequent paper, in the later stages, the mesh will be, let's say, destroyed. They do nothing in the densification stage that will ensure that the mesh remains connected. That's why they say that at the end of the training, they will have a semi-connected mesh. Overall, most triangles are connected, but there might be holes because of the pooling, but that's fine, okay? So for the densification, what they do, they split big triangles into smaller triangles. It's the same idea as Gaussian splatting. Using the view space positional gradient, they know when big triangles need to be splitted, and they do it like this. They split one big triangles into 4 smaller ones. What they also do with triangle splatting, at the end of the training process, you have a set of semi-transparent triangles, a bit like Gaussians, semi-transparent Gaussians, but that's not desired in a mesh representation. So what they do, they have a specific training strategy that makes sure that at the end of the training optimization, all the triangles are opaque. You cannot directly optimize opaque triangles, and that's why it has been really difficult until now to optimize 3D mesh directly, because they are opaque. The gradients is really difficult to, the gradient flow is really difficult. So what they do to solve that, they allow at the beginning to have semi-transparent triangles, but they have a smoothing during training, or scheduling during training that makes sure that at the end of training, all the triangles are opaque. So basically at the end of training, the opacity parameter, you can disregard it, you don't need to store it. At the end of training, you assume that all triangles are opaque. On how they do that, here you have the opacity of a triangle. You can see that you have this parameter, big OT, let's call that alpha, maybe it's easier. You can see that you have a very common term, well, a very common, something we see usually in machine learning or in graphics. You have alpha plus 1 minus alpha times the opacity. So basically at the beginning, big O of t is equal to 0. So basically at the beginning of training, this is all the opacity is coming from this term, okay? And then little by little, it's moving towards 1. So basically my point is at the beginning with this quantity that is coming from the opacity of the triangles, and then little by little it's pushed with this scheduling towards 1. So at the end of training, all the triangles are opaque. Okay, I think that's most of it for this paper. What is great here with this approach is that then each pixel will a given pixel will be affected by only one triangle, okay? A pixel will hit a triangle, and then that's it. With Gaussian splatting or with triangle splatting, a pixel will be affected by many triangles and many Gaussians because they are semi-transparent. Here, because the triangles are opaque, a pixel will be affected by a single triangle, and therefore it's very easy to extract objects from the representation. What you can do, you can use something like, for example, segment anything to get a segmentation mask or instance mask, and then you know which triangles contribute to which object, and you can very easily just extract those objects from the image and get a 3D mesh of those individual objects. So that's it for this video. I really hope it was helpful to you. If it was, please leave a thumbs up. Comment this video, just a simple comment, like thank you, it's always helpful. And yeah, subscribe for more content related to machine learning. Thank you.